Barry was a man of many passions and contradictions. At first glance, he seemed like your typical beer-drinking, carefree guy with an insatiable thirst for life's pleasures. But underneath that easygoing exterior was a man with layers, each more chaotic and colorful than the last. One thing was certain: Barry loved men. He wasn't shy about it either. Whether at a bar, on a city street, or deep in conversation with a stranger at a music festival, Barry had an endless fascination with people. He craved connection, and he never limited himself to just one. The more the merrier. His love for beer and red wine was legendary among his friends. Some nights he'd start with a cold lager, letting it loosen him up, and before long, he'd be swirling a glass of Cabernet like a sommelier, albeit a very drunk one. The line between tipsy and completely gone didn't bother Barry much. For him, getting drunk was about letting go, letting life surprise him. And as much as he loved wine and beer, his obsession with salt might have been even greater. Salt on fries, salt on eggs, salt on watermelon. Nothing escaped his relentless seasoning. "Life's too bland without a little extra flavor," he'd say with a wink. Barry also had Jason. Jason wasn't a separate person exactly. He was more like a voice inside Barry's head, a far too practical, overly cautious version of himself. Jason liked structure, early bedtimes, and counting calories. Barry found Jason mind-numbingly boring. Every now and then, Jason would try to take over and steer Barry toward a quiet night at home or a responsible decision. Barry would always push back. "Not tonight, Jason," he'd mutter, cracking open another beer. "You can have your turn when I'm dead." Despite all the chaos, Barry loved cooking. It was the one time when Jason and Barry found common ground. Chopping vegetables, simmering sauces, and experimenting with new flavors gave Barry a sense of peace and creativity. He'd invite friends over and cook extravagant meals, pairing them with copious amounts of wine. His friends never left hungry or sober. But when the parties ended and the noise died down, Barry often found himself feeling restless. That's when the mountains called. He'd throw some supplies into a backpack and disappear for a few days. Alone with the wind and the towering peaks, Barry felt most alive. He'd hike for hours, getting lost on purpose, losing track of time and himself. The mountains were his sanctuary, a place to reflect, reset, and escape the demands of the world, and sometimes Jason's nagging voice. He called it soul-searching, though most of the time it was just walking until his mind felt light again. In the end, Barry's life was a wild blend of salt, wine, men, and mountain air, a beautiful, unpredictable mess that he wouldn't trade for anything. Jason might have wished for something quieter and more stable, but Barry, he wanted it all.